Station. I'm Leah Cheshire, and this is Dan Hewitt. And in just a few moments, we'll be speaking live with the crew on board the space station. We want to ask your questions, so comment below or send us a tweet with the hashtag SpaceStation20th, and we'll relay your questions to the crew.
But first, let's take a little walk down memory lane. Again, it is the 20th anniversary now, so 20 years ago, on November 20th, 1998, the first element of the International Space Station launched. It took off from Baikonur, Kazakhstan, atop a Proton rocket, taking only about 10 minutes to ride all the way up into its preliminary orbit, so that first piece of the International Space Station heading into space. And that would lay the foundation for one of the most complex international engineering projects in history. And now this was something, it was the culmination of work that was done for years and years by 5 different space agencies representing 15 different nations coming together for, again, one of the most complex tasks ever undertaken. And after that 10-minute ride and the first element, Zarya, the module that still consists on board the space station today, was in orbit, it was not alone for long. Less than 2 weeks later, a space shuttle mission flew into orbit with the next module to get added on board and got the first pictures from space of the International Space Station. It arrived with the Unity module, which would consist of the first piece of the US segment on the station, and kicked off what would be dozens of launches over many years to build the International Space Station piece by piece by piece. Now, these missions brought up all of these different components, building from that first tiny piece to a sprawling space station the size of a football field that we now have today. It brought up everything from new pressurized modules for the crew members to live in, giant solar arrays, the large truss structure which forms the backbone of the space station, new spaces for the crew members to live and work, to conduct research, to do spacewalks, all of these different activities that we now see every day on board the space station. And it was serviced by different cargo vehicles from all around the globe, all of the different space agencies sending these vehicles, and in the recent years, US commercial companies also sending stuff on board. And it's been inhabited now by people every single day since November of 2000. And since then, over 230 people have lived and worked on board the International Space Station, coming from 18 different countries. Using the space inside the space station, which right now is about the size of a 747, their missions lasted anywhere from just a couple of days to close to a year, as we had with the one-year mission with Scott Kelly and Mikhail Kornienko just a short time ago. But it wasn't just the people on the space station, it was also teams working all around the globe in mission control centers, in training facilities, getting these crews ready and working hand in hand every single day. And of course, the main reason we have a space station is to do research and to develop new technologies as we begin to explore farther out into the space, not only around our planet, but well beyond. Over 2,500 different experiments from 106 countries have since been conducted on board the International Space Station, pushing the boundaries and fields of science everywhere from the physical, combustion, to biology, just learning how to live and work in space for extremely long periods of time. And then, of course, new research coming from commercial companies, academia, and other government agencies through the U.S. National Lab. So a lot of exciting opportunities already taking place on board the space station in the last 20 years, and a lot of very exciting ones to come.
We currently have 3 people on board the space station: European astronaut Alexander Gerst, NASA astronaut Serena Aunon-Chancellor, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Sergey Prokopyev. We're going to be standing by and waiting for a call with the crew on board the International Space Station, so don't forget to submit your questions so we can ask them live.
That's right, we'll be getting that call in just about 30 seconds. These 3 have been on board the International Space Station since June earlier this year, and they're going to stay on board until later in December when they come home on December 20th. So we'll stand by now. We should be hearing from the Capcom and Mission Control momentarily.
10 seconds out.
You know what you're going to say.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, this is the International Space Station. We are ready for the event.
JSC PAO, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is JSC PAO. How do you hear me?
Johnson Space Center, this is the International Space Station. We hear you loud and clear.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the International Space Station with you, and I think that you three have the best seat in the house. We are going to be sharing some questions that we're taking live from viewers, and the first one is for Sergey. The question for Sergey is, how is the hardware holding up after 20 years, and are there any surprises in how well or how poorly some things have aged?
Первый вопрос для Сергея. Насколько успешно выдержало оборудование и приборы 20 лет эксплуатации на борту МКС? Были ли какие-нибудь сюрпризы с неожиданно хрупким или, наоборот, выносливым железом?
Thank you for question. За 20 лет эксплуатации здесь очень много что поменялось. Можно сказать, осталась только оболочка, все остальное оборудование постоянно производится замена, либо его усовершенствование. Поэтому трудно сказать, что станция 20 лет назад была такой же, как сейчас. И надо сказать, что сейчас очень высокотехнологичное оборудование находится в обоих сегментах, что в российском, что в американском. И мы понимаем, что вот эти все совершенствования, они будут дальше продолжаться, и мы только надеемся, что все будет лучше и лучше происходить. Насчет хрупости этого оборудования, которое здесь находится, естественно, есть вещи, за которыми мы следим очень бережно. Есть определенные клапаны, которые требуют к себе особого внимания, потому что это безопасность станции. Мы за этим очень сильно следим и относимся к этому очень бережно. Поэтому станция 20 лет работает и, надеюсь, еще проработает как минимум 15, а может и больше.
Hello, good to hear you. So yes, in 20 years, a lot has changed on board the ISS. I would say that only the casing has remained the same. The hardware inside has changed and improved, so it's hard to say that the station is the same now as it was 20 years ago. In terms of the technology, it's getting better and better. The quality is improving with each year, both on the USOS and on the Russian segment. And so we hope that it will just continue getting better with the years. In terms of any surprises, yes, there is a lot of fragile hardware on station, and we keep a close eye on that hardware. For example, some of the valves, we monitor them carefully because that affects the station safety. So for 20 years, the station has been great, and we hope that it flies just as well for at least another 15.
All right, our next question came in from Athathon. This is for Alex, and it was, what advice would you give to any future explorers who want to be kind of floating where you are right now?
I think the person who asked that question is already on a very good track, because they're already participating in an event at the Johnson Space Center, so they're around in the community. And you are obviously a very curious person, otherwise you wouldn't be there. So those are already two really, really good starting points. I think what helped me was going through life with open eyes, very curious, and I didn't take no for an answer for many of my undertakings. Like if things got tough, I still tried to get to an answer if I was looking for one. If people didn't find an answer, I tried to find out myself. And also I looked for opportunities to get, well, a little bit closer to one of my dreams. I had a lot when I was a child. I wanted to become a scientist, a firefighter, a train driver, and an astronaut. So I checked off several of these before becoming an astronaut. And every time I saw an opportunity in life, I gave it a chance. I didn't say, oh, maybe next week would be better. Maybe the chance will come again. Well, often they don't. So that would be one of my main advice points. And then, yeah, I guess, you know, not every dream can become real, but you got to give it a chance, right? And because if you don't, it will never become real. And then I was one of the most surprised people when eventually I became an astronaut because I always thought, oh, astronauts are superheroes and they can do all much better than I can do. Well, guess what? We're just normal people, and I just needed to learn that, to understand that everybody of you down there can do something better than anybody else around you, and if you use that talent, well, it might bring you here. A boy or girl, doesn't matter. You just give it a try.
Thank you. Our next question is for Serena from J.R. Kraft, who wants to know what you think the next 20 years of humans in low Earth orbit will entail.
Wow, that's a big question. Certainly to start with, you know, we've had a lot of science going on this orbiting laboratory for some time, and our science capabilities continue to increase. In fact, just a couple weeks ago, Alex and I installed the Life Sciences Glove Box, which pretty much doubled a lot of our capability in some areas. And I think scientists are just learning what this microgravity environment can do for their research. We've discovered that cells act differently, proteins act differently, they grow differently, the structure is different. And it helps them with their research in things like cures for cancer, cures against Parkinson's disease. And so this has been really exciting on this front because this is, right now is really the first time we're beginning to see some of this, and we realized that we could utilize this station for another 8 to 10 to 20 years as far as science is concerned. As far as humans living in low Earth orbit, you know, we learn new things almost every month, every year. Humans react differently, we're all different, and so it's a constant challenge to see how long can we keep the human healthy up here. We do a very good job, and I think the human body does an amazing job of adapting to the microgravity environment. But certainly, I think these next 20 years, they're gonna go by in a flash, because even for us, our 6 months have gone by very, very quickly, and we're continuing to learn new things every day.
All right, we also collected a couple of questions on YouTube, and this one from Ellie is for Sergey.
How do you celebrate holidays on the space station?
Вопрос Сергею. Как вы отмечаете праздники на МКС?
Thank you for question. Мы отмечаем в первую очередь тем, что вот сейчас находимся рядом перед вами и отвечаем на ваши вопросы. Это очень приятно, что мы имеем возможность встречаться с теми людьми, которым это очень интересно. И, конечно же, мы будем вечером отметим за совместным ужином. У нас пришло 2 грузовика с подарками от семей, от наших друзей. У нас есть свежие фрукты. Мы обязательно попробуем все эти подарки, и это будет для нас определенным праздником тоже.
Thank you. That's a great question.
Dinner with candle.
And actually, we are celebrating today our 20th anniversary. And the first way we're doing that is by speaking with you who are interested in what we're doing. And it's a great delight for us. And it's a great way for us to celebrate together with you. This evening, we're going to have a joint dinner. We've had 2 new cargo vehicles arrive. They've brought up gifts from friends and family and a lot of fresh fruit. And we look forward to trying out all those gifts and to celebrate in the evening also. And we're celebrating with this great candle that you see floating around.
Well, we hope you really enjoy your celebration. We now have another YouTube question for Serena, and this comes to us from a group of students in California.
Hi, we are a 5th grade LEGO robotics team from San Jose, California. Congratulations on the 20th anniversary of the ISS.
We have heard that many astronauts have nail injuries during spacewalks. Our team is working on a project to solve this problem.
Have you or your fellow astronauts faced nail delamination during an EVA?
Do you use any cream or lubricant inside the EVA space glove?
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. You inspire us, and good luck on your mission.
Hey, that's a great question. Actually, the nail bed delamination is something that we've seen medically for a long period of time. Not every astronaut gets it during an EVA. It's variable, and we really can't predict who gets it and who doesn't. We think some of the contributing factors are that we are working in a pressurized glove. So when we go outside to do a spacewalk, that entire spacesuit is pressurized to 4.3 psi. So space is at vacuum, and we of course have to be above that to survive. But that means every time you close and open your hand in a spacesuit, you are working against that pressure. And every time you hold on to a handrail and move around the space station, the ends of your fingers also strike the ends of the gloves sometimes. And so we think that plus just pressure around the end of the finger sometimes causes that nail bed to lift up. So we're not allowed to really use creams or ointments inside the suit because we're working in a 100% oxygen environment, and that could be dangerous for us. There are certain sorts of substances that are approved, but very few, and some astronauts do use those, but it is kind of a mystery. Now, sometimes we see this pop up in training, and if that's the case, we can custom make gloves for that astronaut, and that seems to do the trick.
All right, this next one is for Alex, which we're getting a lot of happy birthday ISS wishes from Berlin and a couple of other places in Germany. This one comes from Angela, who wanted to know, what do you miss most from Earth while you're up there?
Yeah, hey Angela. As always, you know, when you're in a place where you don't have some of the things that you like, then you miss them first, right? Those are the things that you might miss from Earth. Is like food, like really great food. I miss, for example, salad, or also sometimes taking a shower just to have the feeling of water running down my body. I didn't have that since half a year, even though we wash ourselves with water, but it just doesn't fall down. Things like that. And then there's the things that I miss that I wasn't aware before, that all of a sudden hit me when I was up here, that I was missing things that I didn't even know they were important to me. For example, a November rain. Like some people think it's a fall rain. It's like cold and dirty outside, but actually, you know, when you haven't had rain, a single drop of rain for half a year, you start missing it. I start missing weather. I start missing nature around me, just like a walk in the forest, smelling the leaves, smelling the greens outside. That is something that I really miss, and I think that's something teaching us when we look down on Earth, right up here in space. I always thought when I grew up, space was a special place. I always wanted to be there, and I thought, well, Earth is so normal and space is so special. Well, when you're up here, you realize it's exactly the opposite. It's the other way around. Space is pretty much everywhere around us, around this little planet. It's black and empty. There's a few points that are worth looking at, and we do that, like the planets around us. But actually, the real special place in the universe, the real unique place that is our spaceship that only exists once and that we have to really take care of because it's very fragile, that's that planet Earth down there where you guys are.
We have another question for Sergey from Miss Anna students, and they are actually in Serbia. They want to know if astronauts can choose their daily menu, or is what they eat already planned in advance? And do you all eat the same thing?
Вот еще один вопрос Сергею от студентов класса мисс Анны из Сербии. Вопрос про меню. Вы можете сами выбирать свое меню каждый день, или это уже все заранее запланировано? И все ли едят то же самое? План еды.
Thank you, very good question. У нас есть определенный набор продуктов, который мы должны съесть за 16 дней. Что есть в определенный день, такого правила нету. Вернее, оно есть, но его, в принципе, никто не соблюдает. Мы все равно делимся с друг другом продуктами. Кому-то нравится одно, кому-то нравится другое. Поэтому жесткого меню у нас как такового нету. Особенно, когда приходят вот такие грузовики, как сейчас, мы можем разбавить свое рутинное, скажем так, меню на более интересные вещи, которые присылают нам с такими грузовиками. Спасибо.
That's a great question. What we do have is a set of food items that must be eaten within 16 days. But we don't have a hard set rule about what to eat each day. Well, actually we do, but we don't really stick to it. The truth is that some people like some things, other people like other things, and so we always share and exchange the foods that we have, but we don't have a mandatory menu. And especially it's exciting when a cargo vehicle arrives, like it's happening now, because then we can change up our routine and have some of the special food items that come up only once in a while.
All right, we have one more video that we collected on YouTube. This one's from Trudy in Germany for Alex.
Hello, Alexander Gerst, Serena, and Sergey. My name is Trudy. I'm from Germany. I want to know why these numbers are mirrored. Happy birthday, ISS!
Hey, Trudy. That's a really good question. And, you know, I was actually thinking about this a few days back. And I realized that I work with those spacesuits so much that I had actually forgotten if the writing was the right way around or if it was mirrored. So I went there and looked again. And you're right, it's mirrored. The reason for that is that the writing is meant for the person that's in the suit. So, for example, one of the things that I can change at the front of the suit is the cooling system. So I can change the temperature from low to high. If I'm warm, I just set down the temperature a bit cooler, and then I feel better in the suit. And to read the writing on that, I would have to use my mirror that I have on my wrist. And so in order to read it properly through the mirror, the writing is mirrored from the beginning. So to me, it looks proper, looks right in the mirror. But it's a really good question.
This next question is for Serena. Amanda is watching live and thinks it would be pretty hard to sleep up there. So she wants to know how you deal with that.
Hi, Amanda. Actually, I sleep really well up here. The first couple weeks it's a little difficult, only because you're used to lying flat in a bed and you feel the bed all around you. And so when I first got up here, we have a special sleeping bag that we kind of attach to the wall in our crew quarters. And our crew quarters is about the size of a telephone booth, not very big. But once you get inside that sleeping bag, you're almost free floating, and it's a little difficult to sleep at first. So I found myself turning in all directions to put my feet up against the wall, my head up against the wall, to feel normal, like I was on Earth. And then after a couple weeks, that passes, and I still put a jacket, a piece of clothing up near my head, so I feel like I'm leaning on a pillow, and that's very comfortable for me. Just to pretend that I'm sort of lying on a pillow. We're not really lying. But overall, our crew quarters are very quiet inside. It's very dark. There are no cell phones to wake you up at night. And so we actually sleep very, very well up here.
All right, this next one just came in from Krusty for Alex. He sees everybody kind of passing the ball back and forth. Are your reflexes as fast in space as they are here on Earth?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. And it comes back to, right, scientists wanting to find out how does the human body behave differently in space? And can we live for long in space, and how does it change? And one of the things, of course, are muscles. I mean, we knew that in early space flight, people come up here, they don't use their muscles much because floating is really easy, right? I can float up and down with almost no force. But our muscles don't like that because they reduce themselves in size and mass, and then we come back weak. So we're dealing with that problem already since many years, and now actually we find a way to really train our muscles effectively up here. So actually we're not losing muscle mass at all. It's like on my last mission I came back and I had 3 kilos of muscle mass more than before. But of course that's not all. There's other effects in our bodies that change, and we're monitoring this. For example, our eyes for some astronauts change a little bit. Our cardiovascular system changes a little bit. And for example, for reflexes and muscles, we even have an experiment up here. It's called myotones, where we test the tonus of our muscles if it changes. So it's all ongoing science, and that's not only helping astronauts, but also people on Earth who have muscle-related diseases like muscle atrophy and various forms of that, who suffer from these diseases. They can benefit from the science that we do up here. In general, my feeling from being up in space for almost a year now on both my missions is that we do have like smaller things that change up here. But my feeling is that overall, and that's pretty amazing, is that the human body is very, very good at adapting to various environments. And one of them is the space environment. I mean, basically spending up here a year without major changes is a pretty good sign that we could spend much more time out there in space. Of course, we need to do research. There might be like little details that we need to look at that might change and that might become important. But overall, my feeling is that living in space is something.
I think we just had a quick handover, but that was pretty much all of our time that we were going to have with the crew on board the International Space Station. So thank you very much to them for talking to us real quickly. It's always great to talk to them and get some questions from you, the viewer, up to them in space. But that'll do it for our Q&A with the crew today.
Thank you so much for joining. Whether you are watching on NASA TV or Facebook Live, you can learn more about the International Space Station by visiting nasa.gov/station. And you can also follow us online at on Facebook at facebook.com/ISS, on Instagram at ISS, or on Twitter at space_station. That wraps up our time for today. We thank you so much for joining us for the 20th anniversary celebration of the International Space Station.
Station, this is Houston ACR.
Thank you, Johnson Space Center. Thank you, Houston. Thanks to everybody who is joining us today. And all the best from the most complex and most valuable and most unlikely machine that humanity has ever built. All the best from ISS.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
Thank you to all the participants on planet Earth and from the Johnson Space Center Public Affairs Office. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.